All right, everybody. Hello, 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 and welcome. Now we're live everywhere, 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 everywhere. Today is Paranormal Fridays, as we've been having it. Really, I've show since 2003, a long, long, long time, a long time. So that's what we're here today, everybody. I appreciate everybody being here. We're going to have a fantastic presentation. Looking forward to it. We don't have to worry about that. Well, let's just take care of that. Goodbye, trolls. All right. So, hello, everybody. Welcome to the presentation. I appreciate you all being here. Happy Friday. Tonight, this is the only time of the week that we dedicate it to the paranormal. That's it. One night a week. And so we're going to have a great time tonight. Usually we always have some type of presentation on Fridays. And, we'll talk about that a little bit later. Yeah. So first of all, before we get into this presentation, let's do this. If you want to go to my website because you're really bored and have nothing else better to do and you need something to put yourself to sleep, well, then you can just go to bishopjameslong.com. bishopjameslong.com. If you really, really want to, you can go there. We do have the 4 classes there for you available. Those 4 classes are free. It's just my gift to the community, and they're pretty in-depth classes. You're going to learn demonology, angelology, paranormal studies, and genealogy. And so you learn at your own pace. And so it really is a very, very cool class. Classes, actually, say you just click on the class link, go to bishopjameslong.com, click on the class link. A link that's far more important is the church's website, and that's usocc.org, usocc.org. And that is the church's website. I want to remind everybody that tonight we do have night prayer, as we always do, Monday through Friday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we will be going live a little bit later on tonight after this show quits, and we go off air here. And then we'll come back on. Usually we stop here at 9 o'clock or so. And then we come right back on air at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for night prayer. And don't forget also tomorrow. Tomorrow is open mic night, and that's at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I have a very special guest on tomorrow as well. I'm going to speak to a young lady whose family went through hell. And she has written a book about it. She talks about her experiences, and what she endured was nothing less than nightmarish. And I'm going to be having her on tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's a pretty intense presentation. What her family endured was quite terrifying. I mean, I think no question that what they experienced could have been a movie. And so we'll be talking to her tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for open mic. And then, of course, Sunday is our Bible study. So there we go. We have a packed schedule for this weekend, and hopefully you're here with us, and you're going to enjoy every moment. Look, guys, I don't want to spend any longer talking about anything else other than the presentation that we're going to be talking about today. One of the people always talk about, I've been in the paranormal field for 35 years. My first time I investigated was 35 years ago, and people have talked to me for years about Bigfoot and my opinion on Bigfoot. And I think sometimes people think Bigfoot, okay, yeah, right. Well, okay, Bigfoot, yeah, big old ape running around. Sure, I'm sure. Well, why aren't there any bones? Why aren't there blah, blah, blah? Let me just say this. I am absolutely convinced that there is something out there. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There are far too many credible people that are seeing this bipedal creature that is massive in the woods. There are too many people seeing this. And I think when you have that many people who are saying, look, this is what we've experienced, this is what we saw. Remember, I talked about 15 years ago, I had a game warden on from Alaska. And he absolutely, you're not going to tell him anything. He's a native Alaskan. He spent his entire life in the woods. And I even asked him the question, and I've said this many times, I said, well, perhaps maybe I don't know, you made a mistake. Maybe it was a bear. And I'll never forget what he said. He said, Bishop Long, I'm a native Alaskan. My entire life has been in the woods. If I don't know the difference between a bear, a moose, and a bipedal 8-foot, 10-foot creature, then I shouldn't be an Alaskan game warden. And he was absolutely right. And I think when he said that to me, that's when I started taking this seriously. I mean, I'd always taken the subject seriously, but how it's Bigfoot. And when he said this, that really kind of like, you know what, he's right. So tonight we have a very special guest on this evening, and I am really happy that he's here and that he took the invitation. So let me just introduce him to you. His name is Ron Morehead. Ron Morehead, he is known for over 5 decades for his worldwide research into the Bigfoot Sasquatch phenomenon. Look, Ron Morehead is an author, researcher, lecturer, renowned experiencer, producer of the Sierra Sounds. This is the person you want to go to when it comes to Bigfoot. He is, if you're thinking of the epitome of the experts in Bigfoot, well, we're talking to him tonight. He certainly, when you're thinking about Bigfoot research, he's going to be on the Mount Rushmore. If you think of it, I mean, no question. Now, to date, he comes closer than any other researcher to having a complete body of experience, actually vocalization that we're going to be playing tonight, captured during the 1970s at a remote hunting camp of the Sierra Mountains of California. Now, the cassette tapes, by the way, which he recorded them on, were established by a professor of electrical engineering of the University of Wyoming as not being altered in any way, shape, form, or fashion. So inside and out, the average human range representing a creature over 8 foot tall, they said made this noise. Also, the vocalizations were recognized as a cognizant language by a Navy cryptolinguist trained to transcribe and look for deceptiveness in sounds. There was nothing false was found. They conclude it is an actual language. Now, let me say this again, because I think this is important. And I want to say this again. These vocalizations that he has, they were recognized by a Navy cryptolinguist. That's what they do. They specialize in language. And they found that there was nothing false. There was no fakery in this, and that it was a language. So what could this mean? Well, according to Dr. Philip Lieberman, professor of cognitive linguistic sciences, Brown University, only humans have that vocal ability. So Ron provides a compelling PowerPoint program and has put many of the dots together that began to show a picture of what these giants may represent. And he has documented his personal interactions with these giant beings and produced 2 CDs and about 3 thought-provoking books: Voices in the Wilderness, The Quantum Bigfoot, and Bigfoot Unveiled. Now, Ron has traveled from everywhere. You name it, he's traveled in search of the truth on how these beings are able to stay so hidden from classical science. That we're going to address that. And besides being the keynote speaker at many conventions, he's been featured on countless radio programs, TV documentaries. Again, when people want to go and producers want to find an expert on Bigfoot, they speak to Ron. So without further ado, let's bring our special guest in for this evening. Hello, Ron, and welcome to the show. We appreciate you being here and spending this hour with us.
Well, thank you very much for that introduction, Bishop James. I appreciate all the nice words you said about me.
Well, truly, I mean, that's the thing. When you have an expert, and there's no question, you're the expert when it comes to this type of. I think it's a science. I mean, because you have 50 years of evidence that clearly backs up the statement that I believe, and certainly I think you believe, well, not believe, you know that Bigfoots exist.
Yes, I do. And that's because I've encountered them and I've dealt with them. And yeah, it's been quite an adventure, really. I didn't know at the time what it was. I thought it was just a lost ape in the woods or something, but I was raised religiously as a board member at a big church, and me and the other guys that were at this hunting camp encountered these things. And first thing I started doing when all this took place is looking through the Bible, the scriptures, where giants came from, and because they're not supposed to be around anymore, I didn't think, but they are, and they're out there now. But it led me to a whole nother world, and I've been in this world now for 50 years, just researching this enigma, because it is an enigma. And what you said, the introduction there about Dr. Lieberman, only humans have the ability for cognitive speech like we're doing right now. Everything communicates. Everything does, but not with language like we do. And nothing's supposed to be able to do that except human beings. Therefore, I kind of put it together that these things have to have a human component to them. And at least the ones we dealt with in the Sierras that were recorded and had them analyzed. So it's taken me on quite a trip. I went to Peru, Bolivia, look at the elongated skull, see if there's any connection there with the sagittal crest that people see on some of these Bigfoots up here. And it just a lot of crumb trails leading up to the north. And just quite an adventure. I've been in Russia, Siberia, and those places like that, just getting answers and speaking at a lot of conventions with other guys. But for a long time, everybody called me an expert, but I used to say, no, there's no experts in this. Experts supposed to know everything. But I looked at the definition of expert, and really, experts just supposed to know more than most people. So I guess in that regard, I guess I am. But I got to tell you something, just between me and you. There are, I don't know everything. I'll tell you that.
No one does. No one does. But as far as Bigfoot, you are the expert here in this crowd. I don't think anybody can touch your experience and your knowledge when it comes to Bigfoot. So I think we're going to look at you. You're the expert here tonight. So thank you. Okay. Thank you for being with us.
We'll go with that one. I like that.
Well, let me ask you here's the first question that I have for you. And if you guys, for those of you who have questions, you can, jump in and ask questions, but I've got, why Bigfoot? What you've devoted 50 years of your life to a study of a creature that some people say doesn't exist. I disagree. So what is it about this particular creature that you've dedicated 50 years more than that of your life to?
Well, I wasn't looking for it. It came to us. I say, there was a family of them up in the Sierra Mountains of California, 8 miles away, a very remote campsite, and 8,400 feet in elevation. And it just, they came around our camp and was making these noises. And we ended up realizing it's not a bear. And it's these huge tracks, and the sounds were just ridiculous. And you're going to play some of those in a few minutes, I think. But it just really, it gets in your skin. First thing you know, you can't let it go. And I think this is what I'm called to life to do. This is my passion now. And so I can be on programs like yours and tell people about what I think it means and where it goes, because it's really important, I think, for everybody to hear this and to know that these things are not out there. Well, some of them are vicious, some of them are malicious, but what we ran into in the Sierras was not that way. They were trying to communicate with us, and that's and we, for a long time we didn't do anything about it. We just thought, well, Alberry, he's a investigative reporter we took in. He was looking for a hoax, thinking this can't be happening, but it was happening. He got wrapped up in it and wrote a book too. And but anyway, he compelled me to start writing, and so that's when I started writing books too. He passed away about 10, 12 years ago, but he became a good friend. He was a master's degree in science, so he said, whatever you do, stay with science with this subject up here, because there were some strange things going on. And for a long time, I wrote, how do you answer those strange things? Because in science, classical scientists don't answer them. But we're having all kinds of issues going up there besides just the vocalizations. But Bigfoot is a big thing, and it's a big thing in these conventions I'm speaking at. And a lot of people are interested because a lot of people are seeing these things all over the world, really, not just here, but they do exist, they are. And
so you're saying that they're just like, I guess, people. There are kind Bigfoots, and there are also vicious and aggressive Bigfoots.
There can be. Yeah, I was in Alaska, Portlock, Alaska, a couple of years ago with a filming crew, and they was trying to rehabilitate this native tribe was trying to rehabilitate this place called Portlock in Alaska, and they abandoned it in the late 40s because of a giant, something like a Bigfoot, was killing them.
Wow.
kill about 3 dozen of them out here. And according to the newspapers, they were overfishing it, and they were heavily timbered. And when they took me in there on a helicopter, I was able to look over the area pretty well. And they heavily timbered it years and years ago. You could see the growth differences. And they were also mining it, I found out. And from the pictures I saw, they were really catching a lot of fish there. I could see why they'd want to go back. But they didn't want to go back because of danger there, because it was kind of a spooky place. They find body parts and stuff like that. Anyway, I had suggestions for them, but they wanted a Bigfoot expert. They thought they'd pull on me, and that didn't put any pressure on me at all, does it? Yeah, you can come back. something like that. No, better not. You better, because if these things are malicious. But then what I suggested to them was that I think they were probably infiltrating too much into their territory, their habitat, by cutting all the trees down. They don't like that at all. And a lot of reports about these things being seen when they're cutting trees or just cutting trees down. Trees are our life here on Earth. Without trees, we wouldn't be very much either. So anyway, they, I think, have a real problem with that. So I imagine if they came out of the woods screaming at them, somebody would have shot at them, and that might have gotten them a little bit disturbed, and that probably would have caused them to be aggressive.
Sure.
Because that's the way. That's my opinion anyway.
So for those of you just joining, we're talking to Ron Morehead, who has over 50 years experience studying Bigfoot. Later on, we're going to be playing some sound recordings that he has recorded that, by the way, I'm going to make this very clear. These were on cassette recordings back in the day. I remember the cassette recording. I had cassettes, and so I remember those days, especially when you were hoping to listen to your favorite song being played on the radio so you can record it. I remember those days. So these recordings were proven that they were not tampered with in any way, shape, form, or fashion. So let's get to the first question I have for you. In your book, Bigfoot Unveiled, great book, by the way, you got to pick it up, guys, called Bigfoot Unveiled. Truly, there are amazing. I really like the fact that you went into the history and the background of Bigfoot and even the scientific approach. And in the, I believe the 3rd chapter, there is a really good chapter for those of you who love science. Well, I think you need to read chapter 3 and even chapter 5 when it talks about the analysis of evidence, and even he challenges in skepticism. That's one thing I like about your book. You address, it seems like, the issues that people try to pick apart regarding the existence of Bigfoot. So in your book, Bigfoot Unveiled, you delve into the mysterious world of Bigfoot. So what is the most chilling encounter that you have documented?
Well, the Sierra Nevada mountains, it was chilling when I first started going up there, when these things were sounding very, very aggressive. And at first we didn't know if they were, going to tear into our shelter after us, or if we had guns. It's a hunting camp, really. That's what it was for. And the Johnson brothers have been going up there since 1958. So what you don't know is what their intentions are. Right. None of us were looking for Bigfoot. We didn't have that on our radar at all. Well, they didn't. I went up, after I started going up, I started trying to figure out how to trick these things, and found out they were always a little bit ahead of you when you try to trick them. Like they sense what you're doing, or they know what you're fixing to do. We never could capture a picture. We tried several times, but they'll always go around the trip some way. And so anyway, it's that was my chilling. I guess you can't explain it, because there's something out there that's 8-10 foot tall, and the sounds will jar you. I mean, it just shakes you, and there's such an amplitude within their lungs, and just really, you don't know what's going to happen. So that's kind of chilling. One guy wouldn't even go back. That's how I got involved. He came out and said the Johnson brothers' story is true. There's some kind of monster up there, and he came out early. So the wives are all worried because they didn't know if they was going to be eaten or carried away or what's going to happen. So he said, I'll go back, but you got to go back with me, because they wanted to check them, see if the guys were okay, because they weren't coming out when they were supposed to. So that's how I got involved in it. And that was 1971.
Now, so now you said that was in the Sierra Mountains. Of course, those are beautiful. So can you share an experience when you actually felt genuine fear during one of your Bigfoot explorations? What was it that made your hair stand on the back of your neck?
All right, this is going to sound a little paranormal maybe, but went outside the shelter with Warren Johnson one time when one of these things was behind this huge tree, we think. We jumped outside the shelter thing, we'll see it run away, because really we didn't have the fear, because we realized they weren't breaking in after us. We didn't have to shoot at them or nothing like that, and they were just trying to play with us, really, or deal with us or communicate or something. So we both walked up towards that tree, and that was a little, because we didn't see it run away. That'll chill you. And then all of a sudden you got froze, like I refer to it in my book as like a force field. It couldn't move. And we could go backwards. But he said, I can only achieve you. I can't move. And I said, I can't either. So we were able to go back in the shelter. We did. As soon as we get back in, that thing started mouth off again behind that tree. And I related that to a scientist one time. And he said, well, we can't, science don't work with fear. They don't work with, it had to be pheromones, because I told we weren't really afraid at that time, because we realized that they weren't going to throw rocks at us. They weren't going to eat us or anything like that. This was 72 or maybe 73. Anyway, he said it had to be pheromones or infrasound that stopped you, because infrasound does affect humans. So that got me into, well, I didn't see anything, but it did affect us, that's for sure. So I went with that. It must have been infrasound. They have such a vocal range. The corroboration that Dr. Curlin got from the University of Wyoming, he got some corroboration from Dr. Benson at Texas A&M, saying it represented an animal 8.5 foot tall. That fell right into Dr. Curlin's report. So we knew they were big. This was afterwards, actually, but we knew they were big from their tracks. But I guess that would have been the chilling thing. But fear is your enemy. And I've learned, I think, over the years, not to fear. And it's easy to say that, but it's hard to do it sometimes.
Sure, yeah.
I've been in the land between the lakes where the dogman's supposed to be, and they eat people there, supposedly, or kill them. So, but still, I told the guys down there, if you fear these things, they're going to feed on that, because evil will feed on evil. I mean, fear. And it's just, I caution people on try to control your fear. That's the one thing. Fear is usually just the lack of the unknown. And paranormal, I used to be called the woo-woo or the paranormal guy, but anymore, the science of quantum physics actually answers the questions that the paranormal and the woo would have, like ghosts and demons and things like that. You can get into what's really going on around us, because we live in a third density environment. I get off the track here a little bit, because I know you want to hear about my fear, but I learned how not to have fear up there. And that's kind of important, I think, to have an encounter, because it's all about vibration, energy, frequency, and vibration.
And see, the thing is, here's the thing that frightens me as far as, investigating Bigfoot. It's one thing when you're out there and you're like, okay, there is an 8 foot, 10 foot bipedal creature, or a being rather, out there in the woods. But there's also, you're also, could be coming across a big old mountain lion or even a bear. And so to me, that's, isn't it odd? Perhaps, I don't know, maybe it's because of my inexperience, I guess, trying to find a Bigfoot, but it seems like that would be more frightening, at least to me, coming across a bear or a mountain lion than it would a Bigfoot. Would you agree to this?
Well, not for me. It probably would be for a lot of people. I'd say that because I've been right close to bear up there, a lot of bear up there, and there's mountain lion up there too. But I've had bear come within 20 feet of me, and they don't see you. If you're just really real still, they can't see very well, but they can sure smell you. So as soon as he got a whiff of me, they shot off like a dart. But I wasn't afraid. And I think somehow animals sense fear. They can sense if you're afraid of them. I'm a diver too, and I've been down with the sharks, and I've taken the shark man down. He's made several films about great whites and all. He says they can sense their fear. And he just sits down there amongst them, and he says if you're afraid, they're gonna mess with you. But I think it's the same way with anything out there. If a horse, I had a horse too. A horse can sense your fear. If you're afraid to get on him, he's going to know that, or she's going to know that what you're on your riding. And they just animals are like we are too. Sometimes you'll sense something about something.
Yep.
That's your intuitiveness, which we're all born with. Some of us have more than others, and I think if you sense fear, you should pay attention to it, but don't let it overwhelm you. Don't let it control you.
Sure. One time, I'll tell you this very quickly. I was at Colorado, and I've always wanted to go to the Rocky Mountains. Now, I'll send you later on. I would love to get your opinion. I didn't even think about doing this, but when I went up there with some friends, they do a lot of, Sasquatch and investigation, things of this nature. We found some type of, it looked to me like a hut, like almost like a teepee kind of a thing. But here's what was so odd. The roots of a tree, this tree was lifted from its roots. There was no axe marks. No one cut this tree down. Something lifted this tree from the ground, from its very, I have it on video, the roots, and then planted, like it looked like a teepee, kind of a shelter. And I looked everywhere for maybe where an axe mark. I couldn't find anything. Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It just something heavy, big, lifted these tree limbs, big tree limbs, and then made kind of like a teepee looking hut kind of a thing. Have you seen anything like that before?
I have.
Okay.
Not in this area, not where our camp is, but Jim Myers, he lives there. He takes people out on Bigfoot stuff like that. I don't know if that's who you're with or not, but he's into Bigfoot. In Bailey, Colorado. And anyway, they see stuff like that. That's inhuman. I mean, when you see a tree like that, you see some of them are just planted upside down. They just pick them up and put them in the ground upside down. How they do that? Wow, it takes
tremendous force.
A lot of force and a lot of manipulating of energy.
I will if I can fly, because I know when I went out, this was like 4 or 5 years ago, I went there and I'm thinking, boy, this was because I've never seen anything ever in my life like that before. So that was pretty. I'd love to send that to you.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you a question. So your recordings, often referred to as the Sierra Sounds, have fascinated, and I would even say haunted, some listeners. So what was your first reaction upon hearing these eerie vocalizations?
Well, a little spooky, and again, you don't know what they're going to do. So my first reaction is, we all got our guns in our hands. We're ready. Yeah. So that's obvious because we don't know what we're dealing with, and you don't know if they're going to attack you or not. Of course, that's how it was in the 70s, early 70s, because this went on from 71 through 76 with us up to the close end stuff. And after that, just oddball stuff would happen. But the close end stuff, after we had to shoot a bear in camp, it messed up our camp. So it's. I think you want to hear me say something about fear, but I really learned to control that up there, and that's, I think, just the core of why I had so much interaction with them, because they knew I wasn't going to shoot at them because they had fear. I think we need to know who we are as humans. Yeah. I was raised Christian, and I know who I am. I know that nothing's going to hurt me without being okay. I mean, even if I die, I'm okay. So I don't like to say that like too much, like it's so. But I just I think it's important that everybody knows who they are and what image they're made in, and how important you are as a human being on this planet. And that's where all this has led me to, the Bigfoot stuff, because if they are part human, I think we need to understand what we are. Because in my opinion, I've studied, now I got into UFOs because I did see a UFO up there one time when this Bigfoot stuff was going on, and it's just huge, coming down, a big blue ball coming down, and lost it behind the trees and never seen it again. But it was just there's the connection there, I believe. And you get into ancient texts like our Bible and if you go into Mesopotamia, I don't know if you're going to get off on that right now or not, but it's very interesting how the Sumerians got upgraded so quickly by the quote unquote Anunnaki, but that's another story. But it goes way back, and I think Bigfoot was made in the image of them, and they created but Anunnaki, as you know, you may not know, but most people do, that they were called the sky people, the people from the sky. They were even Satan was called the shiny one. So I'm sorry, Jim.
No, it's all good.
Brother Jim, I just get off on this stuff because it leads me into something very etherical, and I appreciate that. And I really appreciate you having me on tonight, because I think it's important for people to understand that the reason I encountered my Bigfoot stuff and been around the world studying this stuff is because of my interest in what we are and what we're doing here on Earth, and why they can't find bones. You want to know that? Well, it gets into, I get into the science part of that, how that works, and why they can't find, why these things don't just die. Well, how do we know they don't die? They're part human.
Yeah, you know, I'm curious. So tell us, I'm really curious. How do you, okay, so you're out in the woods, and and you say you control your fear, but I guess, Ron, my question is when you're hearing these vocalizations and it's late at night, you're in the woods, and yes, okay, yeah, you have a weapon to protect yourself, and that's great. But when you hear these things, these vocalizations, how are you able to? People ask me the same question when it comes to demons or possession. You know, when I go into it as an exorcist, when I work a possession case, there is no fear. In my first case, there certainly was, because it was a different experience. I read about what could happen, but then when you walk into a situation with someone who's possessed, it's a different world. And you learn to kind of compartmentalize that fear. Is that the same way with you? How do you control that fear, knowing, in fact, that you're in the woods with a very large creature that either wants you to go away, or perhaps maybe could be aggressive, maybe nefarious? How are you able to compartmentalize your fear and control it?
Well, it's knowledge.
Okay.
I knew they hadn't eaten the other guys. You know, the Johnson brothers, they didn't get harmed. They got out okay. And we all went back. Nothing happened. I mean, I say nothing happened. Nobody got eaten or carried away. But the sound is very aggressive, as you'll hear in a few minutes. Very, very. We don't know if it's territorial, or maybe they were fighting with each other because there was more than one there. In fact, I had another linguist listen to these years later. One of only 10 certified in California. They're court reporter or court interpreter in several languages, very perfect hearing. She listened to him and she said, "That's a male and a female fighting." And just let all the ladies out there know, the female won.
The female won. The female, fair enough.
That's what she said.
That's funny. That's funny.
But yeah, when you know they haven't heard anything yet, and you know they were coming in with the food we left out and messing with us. I say messing with us because we thought we were studying them; they were studying us, really. And they were trying to communicate and be, I don't know, whatever. But they were, the first time you're out, it was, the aggressive sounds just jar you a little bit. I gotta say that. But we did have guns, big guns, and that gives you a certain amount of security too. But you're right, when you walk around out in the woods and you see a bear, well, I went up there with a cryptolinguist. He wanted to try to corroborate some more sounds for his work, and there's a bear right there out in the meadow by us, and "Where's the gun, Ron? Where's the gun? Where's the gun?" He was going to shoot at you, or get ready to shoot. I said, "No, you don't got to do that. Just wait and see what happens here." And I had in the bottom of a backpack, and we were walking in, and finally it smelled us and went the other way. But you know, most people want to shoot or hurt something they don't understand. And that's part of the reason we have wars today, I think, because they're still fighting over Rebecca's womb, you know, when the hairy one came out and the other one didn't.
That's true. That's true. Let me ask you real quick. Obviously, you know, for those of you who don't know this story, Albert Ostman, he was a Canadian prospector, claimed in 1924 to have been kidnapped and even held captive by a Sasquatch family for 6 days, in British Columbia. A lot of people think it's an anecdote, but it's, you know, the event. He claimed to have been abducted in the middle of the night while prospecting in British Columbia. And he stated that he was held captive by a family of Sasquatches. They wouldn't let him leave. He described being held for about 6 days, and eventually he was able to escape the Sasquatch, return to civilization. And he spoke about his experience in the 1972 film Bigfoot, Man or Beast. You would know, based on this story, do you think this is just a story, or do you think there's any type of credibility in it?
I think there's credibility in it. He was kidnapped in 1924. But he was interviewed by John Green, who was a Bigfoot researcher in Canada in 1950s early. And in John Green's book, The Apes Among Us, he mentioned that Albert Ostman said they were chattering amongst themselves. They were talking to each other. The Bigfoots, where there was a dominant male that carried them off, and then a female and 2 adolescents there. And this bowl, like, I flew up there. I'm a pilot too, and I had my own airplane, and flew up there with a couple of the researchers looking for that bowl at Toba Inlet. And that was 1996, I think it was. And anyway, it was we could not find the bowl. So my assessment was, after we all studied and talked about it, and I slow flew over that area for a long, long time looking for that. I don't think he was in Toba Inlet. I mentioned that to John Green, who's now passed away. Everybody's dying. You notice that lately, by my age anyway. And he said, no, he wasn't lying. I said, I don't think he's lying. I think he's just maybe mistaken. But his detailed account of how he got out of there just fits with a lot of stuff that's along that trail, along the way, where he came out and all that. So, but there's a lot of inlets up there, a lot of inlets. And it's really a beautiful country. And I've been up there quite a bit and been up there since then, too. But it's just something to think about. But yeah, I think he's credible in what he was saying. He just may have been mistaken about Toba Inlet, or he was carried a lot further than what he thought he was.
Oh wow!
He was carried for hours, and he was really hurting when he did get let down in that bowl. It was a 10-acre bowl, he said. But the biggest thing I took out of that was they were chattering, because that's just what these things are doing up there at the Sierra Camp, was chattering. And the sounds you'll play are just a little more personality to them, aggressiveness and stuff like that. But they do just chatter amongst themselves, and it's a real high speed chatter. And in fact, the cryptolinguist had to slow it way down. That's how he does to transcribe a language or code or something like that. And had him vetted very well by the Foreign Language Institute, where he graduated 2 times from there.
And so, okay, so you believe that there's some credibility here?
Yes.
All right, so let me ask you then, and of course, we're going to play the sound bites in just a second. Someone did ask, there's some great questions. And let's see, Donna is asking, do you think, are there Bigfoots all over the United States, or are there just certain states that you have found that they're more prone?
That's a good question. They seem to be everywhere. I'm in North Carolina right now, and there's Bigfoots being seen around here in the Warri Forest, several places. In fact, a patrolman actually reported one here not too long ago across the road. And yes, they're back here, but more prevalent seems like the Dogman, which is like a werewolf type being. I've never seen one of those or had any encounters with it, but I've been taken to where they're supposedly at, and a lot of reports of those around here being seen. But Bigfoot, yeah, they're seen in all over the United States. More prevalent in the Pacific Northwest, but that might be because we're encroaching more, and more people get out in the woods looking around and seeing these things by accident or whatever. So who knows how many there are, but there has to be quite a few for the breeding population.
Sure. And now Alex is asking, is Bigfoot similar to the Yeti or the Russian Alma or Sasquatch? Are they basically all in the same, or how does, if you could explain that? It's a good question.
Yeah, well, it is. But as soon as we get DNA out of something like that, which we've gotten a couple, but the scientific community, the academic community has foo-fooed them down. But 2 DNA studies have been done that I believe in, and one of them was Dr. Ketchum in Texas. She did a DNA study on several, and she found a human mitochondrial DNA, which is the maternal side, to be partially human. And of course, academia said, well, that has to be contaminated. She swears up and down it wasn't contaminated. She handled it, had all the records and everything. So I think she's going to be exonerated from that. But academia just won't accept anything that's not in their gene bank of 227 billion samples, And then you got one from some other country, I forgot her name right now, but she's a geneticist that went up in the Himalayas. At 17,000 feet, they found some humanoid tracks, Yeti tracks is what they think it was, because they took some eDNA, which is environmental DNA, out of it. The mitochondria came back the same as Ketchum's did, human in the mitochondria, which is the female side. So the question there is, what's the male counterpart? And that's where people get into biblical crossing over with the celestial beings, fallen ones. Let's call them fallen ones.
So let's get into this one conversation. Then I'd like to maybe play a one of the sound bites. Okay, people, this is inevitable. People always ask, well, if Bigfoot truly exists, we would at least find bones. Now, I have my own, perhaps my theory. Tell me if this is absolutely absurd, because I'm not an expert in Bigfoot. How do we know that they don't bury their dead? So I mean,
but something else.
Yeah,
nature cleans itself up. I mean, I've run across carcasses of a bear. I've run across carcasses of deer. You go there a couple of years later, and you don't see any sign of it. The rats get the marrow out of the bone. It just goes down from the crows to the whatever. I ran up on a bear one time that was eating a carcass, and you don't want to go too close to that, but he shot off, and went by there a year later, and there was still some bones there. A year later after that, there wasn't any bones there. So that's one answer.
Okay.
And the other answer from native lore is that they do take care of their own, because there is a human component to them. But they're not all the same. I got to tell you this: they're not all the same.
Okay.
A lot of them have been diluted down, in my opinion, with crossbreeding with indigenous people over the eons of time. I think they were here prior to Homo sapiens. I just believe that, because I believe aliens have been coming here for a long time, and they've messed with the genome of different species on this planet. And I think Bigfoot is a product of the troglodytes being crossbred with I call them alien, but the Bible calls them fallen angels.
Okay.
Who did, well, I guess.
Now, so a lot of people talk about like a telepathic or even a spiritual level. How do you explain the connection that some people claim to have with Bigfoot on a telepathic or even a spiritual level? Have you experienced anything like this yourself, especially telepathic? A lot of people that I've spoken to have said that they've seen a Bigfoot, that they had this telepathic experience. Have you had that?
Brother James, no, I haven't.
Okay.
However, I think we all have that ability. We all have that in our genes, in our DNA. Our telomeres have been cut down, so we only live 120 years now. Men used to live a lot longer, as you know, and we have been manipulated. And some people, if you're on the right frequency, and I say this not like it was kind of like a radio, I guess, but I think they sense your frequency, and if they can tune into that. So that is, a lot of people are telepathic now. In fact, we all are, if we just learn how to reach to it and clean up our pineal gland, which is inside our head, and get that connected to the heart, which it is. And your heart has its own brain, and we should go by our heart's feelings. That's a gut feeling that you get. That has to be in coherence with the brain that's sitting up on your head, or sitting up on your shoulders. It's been conditioned. We've all been conditioned by one thing or another from the time of birth. And until you get out of that box of conditioning and realize there's so much more going on that you don't see, we're trained in Newtonian physics, and Newtonian physics says everything is measurable, predictable, and you got to see it, and it's just not that way. It's not material, and not everything is. You find out in quantum science, which has just came about in 1918 when Max Planck got the Nobel Prize for quantum mechanics. But we're working with 1687 stuff, which we have to because we're in our third density. These things live in third density when they're on this planet, and it gets deep. It gets deep, but it's really fun. And I warned you about this the day we talked.
You did. You did.
I have to get into how much more exists that we don't see, feel, or touch, or that our five senses just don't allow us. That's where people are seeing these oddball things, ghosts and demons and things like that. They're out there. They're around us now. We just don't see them in our third density. There are 11 different dimensions that they seem to mathematically have worked out. Physicists have. And if you get out of this third dimension that we're in, and that's our goal here on this planet, is to get out of this third dimension and get into heaven, if you want to call it that.
Sure.
And that is outside this third density, which is on a linear time scale. And we just have to, I think, reach out and open up our heads and realize how much more is happening out there that we need to understand and delve in, and everybody do their own homework and find out what's going on.
So let me ask you a question. So if we say that Bigfoot exists in, let's say, a fifth dimension or another dimension than then how is it that they're able to manipulate the dimensions and interact with us, and we're not able to do the same? Or are we?
I'm so glad you asked that question. That's what I was going to lead up to.
Okay.
All right, here it is. Einstein said prior to 1933 that matter and energy are interchangeable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Dr. Paul Dirac, in 1933, got the Nobel Prize for antimatter. And that's matter and energy interchanging, just like Einstein said. And he got the mathematical equation right. Everything worked, and they can't disprove it. However, they did prove it through CERN in 2012 when the Hadron Collider sent a particle off and it turned into energy. They could sense energy.
Yeah.
So CERN, you're right. So that's how I heard these people. I've interviewed people for years, and some very credible people say they saw them disappear, just flake out. And then I hear other people say, hey, the trackway just stopped, like got picked up by a helicopter or something. Well, no, what happens? They have found the frequency. They know the frequency it takes to change their matter into energy. And that will cause their density to stop. They won't leave a trackway anymore. That will cause them to get out of your visual perspective. We only see within 430 and 770 terahertz. That is the frequency of our light. Without light, you don't see. And that's all these other frequencies are out there, but we don't see them. Animals sometimes can see better than we can.
True.
They'll see the aura about people. They'll see the energy around people. That's called the aura. And it's just a lot going on that, I've been doing this for 50 years trying to reach to the bottom of it. And it's a big rabbit hole, but it's fun and it's exciting to me. And it's why I'm here today talking to you, because otherwise I wouldn't be. And that's the only reason I was 29 when it started. So I'm in my 80s now. And it just gets me excited every time I talk to people.
So how are we going to perceive the fifth dimension then? Because if we're, or whatever dimension, like for example, if Bigfoot exists in a particular dimension and they're able to obviously integrate with our third dimensional existence, how can we in fact enter theirs? Do we know?
You have to find the frequency. I think it's the gamma state of our awareness. We're in the beta state now, talking cognitively, I think. Then you go into the alpha state, theta state, on into the delta state of sleep. But if you get into the higher frequency of the gamma state, you'll get that intuitiveness that everything about everything you'll know. It's just, I think, and it's how, well, matter and energy interchangeable is a quantum fact now, and that's how I think miracles are done, and that's how I think things can happen. But you got to do that through meditation. You have to balance your heart with your brain, and you got to, that's what the chakras are about, and it gets into all this other stuff too. But it's really how you do it, and I work on it all the time. And I think a lot of people meditate, and prayer is one thing. Prayer is asking for something, but meditation is when you're ready to receive something. That's when you got to open up your pineal gland, which we've been calcifying with our diets. So we got to learn how to clean that up with our diet.
So very, very interesting. Well, a lot of people would actually, I've spoken to some people who do remote viewing, and they say that when they do the remote viewing, it's a form of meditation to where they enter another dimension or existence, if you will. So perhaps maybe that's the only way that we can do, because we're corporal beings. And so
I think it is.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get into, let's talk about our first item that you want us to play so that everyone can hear it. Because you say that first of all, I listened to these. They're amazing, these sound bites. Which sound bite would you like for me to play first?
Well, I think you've got the aggressive ones. That's the kind that we had early on in the study we were doing. Yeah. So
here's what we're going to do. Someone is asking 2 questions very quickly, and then we'll play these sound bites. The first question is: a lot of people claim that there is some type of smell that kind of like a dog smell, if you will, for Bigfoot. Some people claim that, and then another person asking, from your perspective, what do they eat?
They're omnivorous as far as eating goes. They can eat anything we do. As far as the smell goes, we didn't have the smell around them. They were really close to us at times up there. When we was inside the shelter, we should have smelled things when we didn't. So I can't say they all smell bad, because what we were dealing with, and they had a big foot. All of these things are the same. Someone may have that ability, like a skunk, to throw it off, or someone just may not ever get a lake or something, shower. Who knows?
Yeah, fair enough. So that's a great question. Great question. So, okay. So the first soundbite we're going to play is called the 101 aggressive display. So if you can just set that up for us.
Yeah, that came from Al Berry, the reporter we took in, who fostered the analysis on it at the University of Wyoming, actually. And this is not considered a language. It's the aggressive one I'm thinking about. It's just a chest beating like a big gorilla or something, and that's what it sounded like. Okay, because they are probably got some of that in them. Yeah.
Well, here it is. This is the 101 aggressive display. Here it is, everybody. Okay, what on earth did we just listen to?
something very big, very powerful, and I don't know what you're listening to. It was something.
Yeah, I mean, so there. I mean, because yeah, that's what you sent that. Yeah, so it's and by the way, these are on cassettes, and so
Yeah,
when you had them reviewed, and the people listen to it, they clearly just there's nothing fake. There's nothing. I mean, let's play it one more time so everybody. So again, this is when I say it's 101, this is what Ron labeled them as. That way it helps him know it. So it's 101 aggressive display.
they may have been arguing over the food.
Wow. Okay. All right.
I don't know. We hope that's what they were arguing over, not us.
And you say that this was actually reviewed by someone obviously who is does linguistic training. This individual, he was a Navy crypto linguist,
Right.
and
that was not considered language right there. That was just an aggressive display. But the electronical engineer, University of Wyoming, is who actually studied them for quality and to make sure they weren't speeded up, slowed down, or any 60-second hum or anything wrong with them. If they were original. That's why Al Berry said his in, because we had all recording at the time. So there's more redundancy, but that's the best one. And
okay,
when it comes out better, I've got that on a CD in his story on my website.
All right, and we have the next that's labeled that you sent it's labeled 104 Whistle Exchange.
Okay.
So would you like to set that up for us?
Yeah, this is a whistle. They whistle through their vocal cavity, not through their lips like we do. You'll hear a human whistling in the background, but then you'll hear the Bigfoot whistle, which is different. That's been studied also by the sound engineer.
Okay, so it's a whistle exchange. So that rawr, that's actually it responding.
Yes.
Okay, let's play this again. So the whistle, you hear the regular, that Ron is saying. So let's play it one more time. I assume that's human.
No, that's human right there.
Okay, is the first whistle human?
No, the first whistle is the one that is a creature.
Wow. Okay, and then the second whistle, that's human. Okay, let's try this again.
Yes.
That's the creature.
Yeah. Creature.
That's human.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That is a massive creature that is putting that sound out.
Yes. Yeah, that was Warren. Now the mic was up closer to the creature. That sound was coming from the shelter. That was Warren Johnson whistling back and trying to talk to it. And
okay. All right. So we have the Apollo question, I believe. That's the name of it, Apollo question.
Yeah, that's me. It's going to be me from 2 years. It was 1974, I think it was, a couple of years later.
And so
I felt they were communicating with me. They were outside we were outside the shelter. Me and my friend Bill McDowell. We packed some supplies in the horses and mules, and they knew we were there. They knew where we were going, and they were hiding till dusk. And then all of a sudden they started making their whooping sounds and their rock clacking and tree pounding and stuff like that. And we learned from past just to ignore them if we can, and they will come in closer. But this is the first time they really started messing with us while we're outside the shelter. And this was quite an eventful night. This is the night I saw one too, by the way.
And is this in the Apollo question, the one we're about to play, was that in North Carolina or the Sierra?
This is in the Sierras. All this is in the Sierras.
All this in the Sierras. Okay, so let's play this one, everybody. So that whooping thing, that whop, what was that them or is it communicating?
That's them. I was whooping back. I was trying to mimic them. And actually, it went on. Prior to that, there's a lot of whooping sounds that were messaged. I think they messaged each other back and forth, whooping sounds, different intonations to them. But now that's how they end up too. They'll start whooping back, and they'll be gone. And yeah, that was a big night.
Wow.
We were outside the shelter, and that's the night I saw one. So did Bill saw.
So
There's
okay,
one.
describe what they look like. You have to do. Okay, so you saw one. So please describe, what did this Bigfoot look like?
Okay, I could not describe it close enough. It was running. First of all, it was a big samurai cry, they call it. There was a big cry out behind us, and he went down to where we think there was a male and a female down below by the creek, and he goes whipping through the trees real fast, and he was probably 9 foot tall. I'm guessing at that because it was dusk. It was not dark yet, but it wasn't light either, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And we think the young one down there, this is my opinion, the young one down there was getting a little bold. And the mother, you hear some other recordings I got, how the mother was coming down on it. And I think that the male which was up behind us, that's why he went down there to stop him. He just put the penis on it. I got that recorded in my second CD, actually, called Big Little. Actually, no, it's in my book. I got a link in my book, Voices in the Wilderness, that takes you to that sound when I tell you about it. You see the context of it all.
Does it look, I mean, have you ever seen one at least close to the face? No,
I haven't, no.
Okay.
No, I've seen a lot of pictures and a lot of people say that it is one, and a lot of drawings, but I've never seen one until they come in. And we was hoping that would take place up there, but it never took place.
Okay.
The next night, the Johnson brothers came in, and Lewis Johnson, he was up there to hunt. And by 1974, it was good on his nerves because you couldn't, like trying to nail Jones to the wall, you couldn't get ahead of them.
Right.
They started to trick him or whatever you do. You lay food out, you do all that stuff, and they just figure out a way to get it or whatever, and not trick anything. And he's got real, when they started doing the whooping sounds and coming in again like they did the night before with Bill and I, well, Lewis got up and grabbed his rifle and his flashlight, and he started shining his light out there, and he was going to go shoot one. And that was it. They didn't mess with us anymore that whole trip. And that was 74. It wasn't until 76 till we had an encounter again. I'm not sure. I don't think much happened in 75. But that kind of cooled it all down, really. You don't shine white lights at these things. The thing that blinds them a little bit, like it does us. Their eyeballs are probably 4 times bigger than ours, and they probably collect more light in the daytime with starlight, so they can see better at night. And
do you think the Patterson film, do you think that was legitimate?
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so and this next sound we have, be disagreement, or would you rather do talk to us?
Oh, disagreement. Talk to us would be the last one.
Okay, so be disagreement. Can you set that up for us?
Well, it may be just two of them chattering amongst themselves.
Okay.
On who's going to eat us first, or did you find the salt and pepper? I don't know.
Okay, here it is. Let me play it. And I want to say this again. Again, folks, I think it needs to be stressed, because there's always going to be those naysayers. The cassette tapes were established. A professor of electrical engineering, University of Wyoming, is not being altered in any way. And the vocalizations, they were recognized as a true language by a Navy cryptolinguist. who is trained to describe and look for deceptiveness in sound. There was no deceptiveness found. And I don't know how close were you when you recorded that particular soundbite?
Oh, in there? He was probably 50, 75 feet away, maybe yards, probably 50 yards away. No, that's too far. It went past our commode that we had the hole dug down there, and that was probably about 60 feet. Yeah,
60 feet.
60, 75 feet. Yeah.
And the last soundbite we have is "Talk to Us." Can you set that up for us?
Yeah, that's when I first got my recorder out, and Bill said, "You think they're trying to talk to us?" Because they were. There was quite a few back and forth with me and these things that night, and Bill, you'll hear us talking about it, but then you hear them saying something to me, and then me trying to mimic them back, which again, we didn't know what we're dealing with at the time. We still thought they were a big hairy ape out there, and they're big and they're hairy, but they're more than just an ape. They're a type of entity that we all should try to understand, and not just shoot at things we don't understand. There's a lot of people out there trying to shoot one and bag the money, but we got criticized for not shooting at one just to bring it in for science. Well, that's, in our opinion, ridiculous. You don't shoot something, especially now we found out that in Native America calls them their big brothers. They recognize them as humans or as people. And I told people years ago, if you just treat them like a Native American that don't want to be found in the woods, well, you'll have better results, and be calm and be nice. And I give them that anyway.
And so this is "Talk to Us," everybody. Okay, that honest to God, that sounds primate to me. I mean, let's try this again. Listen one more time. That's them.
That's me right there.
Yeah, that's you. It's interesting because when you respond to them, they seem like they got really energized as soon as. So you'll hear the first time and then the second time. So and then you heard Ron. So let's do this. That's the Bigfoot. That's Bigfoot. That's Ron. I mean, that sounds there. Look, at minimum, that sounds primate at minimum.
Well, they're primates. We're all primates, but that's really, they are primates. Yeah.
I mean, the ending sounds to me like, like you would hear from something like a chimpanzee, kind of like that type of energetic. You know what I mean? I guess, like, for example, this very ending part here. Let me play. Well, hold on. This part here. That's interesting. That really is.
I got a lot of it. I mean, there's a lot more in my second CD. It's my story, and I narrate it, and I play the sounds and tell you the story. In the book, Voices in the Wilderness, I actually have 26 sound bites in there, which you can download and hear the sound when you get to the context of the story. It's my chronicle, really, of doing this. And then that's my website, ronmorehead.com. And if, but the Quantum of Good is the second book I wrote. It talks about the mysteries, and then the third book, which you mentioned earlier, the Bigfoot Unveiled, gets a little bit deeper into what I think about AI and a lot of things, trees. I got my thoughts on all that stuff, but it's just my thought. Everybody has a choice to believe or not believe.
Sure.
I really am here to tell people what I've experienced and what I think I know and what I do know for sure.
Has there ever been any evidence that you would know, sir, but that obviously besides the sound bites that we played, but has there ever been any evidence that has been presented where in your opinion, it's irrefutable that these Bigfoot exists without question.
I don't think anything like these tapes have ever been. I mean, people will criticize them, but then they fall right back. I go right back into the science on them. You know, I've got the reports, and people can't debunk them because they're not debunkable. Yet you get people, even Joe Rogan. He says, "Oh, he didn't." Well, he's fallen more into it now because he don't know what to do with it. I was almost scheduled to be on his program one time, but I didn't like his bullshit meter at the time.
Fair enough. That's fair. That's fair. I think now he'd be more open to it.
Yeah, I think he would be. He's a smart guy. And, yeah, he just wasn't doing his homework to start with. And I think maybe he's looking into it a little bit. Anyway, Scott Nelson, the crypto linguist, he's been on this program years ago. And he didn't believe it. I don't think he believes it then, because you know he has to have some controversy there because he's a podcaster.
Right, sure. Well, and again, folks, I strongly encourage you. Look, if you want to go and you truly want to learn about Bigfoot and learn from a person who has over 50 years experience actually investigating and in the woods, then look, forget the YouTube, all that other stuff. That's all. You need to go to Ron Morehead's site and you need to purchase the book from the man who's actually in the field, who's been in the field, who has all this evidence. That's where you need to find, not people. Anybody can watch a documentary and then go on social media and regurgitate what they saw. That doesn't make them an expert. The fact is Ron is actually out there. He was out there. He's done the investigations. He's done the legwork. And everybody who goes on social media to regurgitate Bigfoots are people who actually read his books and the documentaries he's been on and then pretend to be experts in this field. Well, look, go to ronmorehead.com. ronmorehead.com. It's an absolute fantastic site. There are books you can certainly purchase and you can listen. Don't forget, he has the CDs where you can actually listen to a lot more sound bites. This is just a tease, just a small teaser. If you were to, as far as the closing thought, if you were to leave people with one thought about Sasquatch, Bigfoot, whatever it might be, what would it be?
Here it is. I'm so glad you asked me, and I'm so glad you allowed me to be on your program this evening.
Yeah.
My thought is this, and what I lead up to in all my presentations is know who you are as a human being and know how to reach those other parts of who you really are with the gamma frequencies. I think that's how miracles are done. We talked about that earlier, how once you raise your personal elevation, your personal frequency, you will get out of this third density. And that's, I believe, how you graduate from this world we're in. If you don't learn something from this life, it's all about experiences. Our experiences here it's not the experience as much as it is how you respond to the experience. If we learn to respond to all our experience with love and compassion and don't be a victim of anything, because you're here to learn. If you didn't learn, you're going to have to learn at some time, at some place. And I wasn't raised to believe in reincarnation. I'm sure a lot of people who listen here don't either, but I do now because it's called multiple embodiments. And if you got to learn something here or somewhere else, you got to have to learn how to love and treat people with compassion. And until we learn how to do that, you're never going to get out of this third density. And that's what we should all be graduating to. And you can do it. You can do it in this lifetime. You can get up into the fifth dimension.
And how do you do that? How do you increase your frequency in order to obtain the fifth dimension that you're referring to?
Meditation. Learn how to listen to your heart. Let it take over your brain instead of letting your brain talk you out of everything analytically.
And do you have any type of advice as far as where people would go in order to do this? Do you offer any form of meditation CDs or
No, I don't offer that, but there's a lot of programs on it. You can find it all over the TV. If you just look for the hertz, the 432 hertz, 528 hertz, and listen to chakra music. Listen to things that calm you down, or don't listen to anything. Just be quiet and be trying to receive things and not ask for things so much. Not wrong to ask for things because we make our future, I think, by asking. However, I think we just have to learn to listen more. That's why we have 2 ears, 1 mouth.
Very good. Well, Ron, I want to thank you very, very much for spending this time with us and being so generous and giving your time. And everybody, I encourage you, make sure you go to Ron Morehead. They're putting all in the chat, ronmorehead.com. Go to his website, certainly purchase the books. And also, I would strongly encourage you to get the CDs. Look, you're going to be able to actually hear 50 years of the best that he's got. And what I really like what you have is it's not just somebody who is just, oh yeah, I went out there and got in the woods. No, you have Dr. Philip Lieberman. He's a professor of cognitive linguistic sciences, and he's made it very clear that they're not been tampered with in any way, shape, form, or fashion. And you also have, an individual who is an expert in, linguistic science, if you will, and say, yes, this is some form of language.
Well, Dr. Lieberman actually just said only humans can make a language. So that's where I put it together with these things have to have a human component to them.
Absolutely.
Dr. Curlin did the report on how nothing has been manipulated. But anyway, I really appreciate you, Brother James, and I appreciate being on and all that. So, well,
I thank you so much, and I'll send you an email a little bit later thanking you, and I certainly appreciate your time. And you have a great night. Thank you, sir.
I am blessed beyond compare. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ron.
Take care.
Bye-bye. All right, everybody. Well, that was our friend Ron Morehead. I tell you what, that's it's not often that you get, somebody like this with his expertise, his experience on, a show. I mean, that's kind of nice that he did that. So we certainly do thank him very, very much. We'll turn the chat on for everybody on TikTok, and hopefully that will stay. If not, we'll just simply turn sub chat back on. But anyway, it's Ron Morehead, ronmorehead.com. That is the website. I've been to his website. It's just incredible. There's a lot of information. And I think when you have guests on like this, that clearly have established themselves, and not only that, but established the sound bites that he has. I mean, really, this sounds primate to me. That's primate. That's them imitating it. To me, honestly, it sounds like it's like a chimpanzee kind of, they get excited. You know what I mean? That's pretty amazing. So it's in the Sierra Mountains. You're not supposed to have, it forms as far as the gorillas or chimpanzees, but there's something there. I think that at least even if people can say, well, I don't believe in it, we can at least agree there is something there. And it sounds certainly primate to me. I don't know. I just don't know. See, when you go out in Bigfoot hunting, if you will, you're dealing with the elements there. And I don't know. I'm going to share with everybody. As a matter of fact, let me see if I can do this. I'm going to try. I might be able to upload this on, for those of you on all the other social media, I can show it to my friends here. But I'm going to try to see if I can do this and upload the video so I can show you guys. And then while I'm showing you guys, I can play it on my friends on TikTok. This is 100% what we saw when we were at the Rocky Mountains. And I saw this thing, and when you see it, it is really impressive. And this is what I was talking about the roots. It was taken up by the roots, and there's no question that this thing, no human being could have done this. No way, because there are no axe marks. So let me pull this up here and see if I can get this working, because if I can, then I'm going to play this for everybody. And I got to also, everything wants to expand. Hold on. Let me see if I can get this working. So bear with me while I'm trying to work on this. And let me close this out. Okay, hold on. Because I'm actually going to do this now so everybody can see it. How how do I do this with here? Okay, videos. Bear with me, everybody. I want to make sure I get the right one because while I'm showing my friends on KGREDB radio and everywhere else, I'm going to be playing this at the same time with you guys. So then try to match it up as much as I can. So let me, well, where is it? 57, there we go. I think it's 57 seconds. Yep, there it is. Okay, stop. Okay, so let me share this screen. Present, share screen. Yep, allow, window, this. There we go. So watch this, everybody. I'm going to play this for you guys at the same time playing it on my friends. Very interesting. Look at that. What was very interesting is this part right here. This literally was lifted up over the roots. This wasn't chopped. Something very strong had to lift this up and place it here. Now that I cannot explain. Something lifted right up from the ground. So this thing, I mean, in my opinion, this was something very large. Lifted that thing up. Look, there were no chop marks to it. It lifted it up by its roots. I mean, when you guys see this again, let me share it with everybody one more time. The share screen window. Look at this. I mean, you clearly see this thing was, I'll take a picture of it just easier. That way you guys can see it again. I can't explain that. And I've tried and I've shown people this. Look at that. This was lifted up by its roots. And but the thing is that when I went around the whole entire thing, it looked like the shelter, there were bunches of, that wasn't the biggest one. There were bigger roots. This tree just lifted up. So, you know, I've got, you know, when you see something like that, it's like, okay, no human being could have done that. That I know. And especially when there's no destruction to the roots. So when I saw that, that was, okay, this is a pretty cool, really cool catch. And it is. So anyway, that is, yeah, I think that's the thing. How big? It was a pretty big shelter. I would say, oh, let me move this again. I move this so you guys can hear Ron when I have a special guest. For those of you on TikTok, I move the microphone. That way you guys could hear him a little bit better. Yeah, no. It wasn't winds. The winds, it would have cracked. If it was the winds, it would have broken the tree, snapped the tree in half. There was nothing to indicate that it was a wind damage. Nothing. Something lifted it up from the ground by its roots and placed it into like this hut. That was amazing. That was it. When I saw that, that was like, okay, something is odd here. But yeah, I do, Shane. But anyway, that was my experience with Bigfoot, if you will. I just think when you're investigating Bigfoot, there are other elements that is frightening to me, and those are wild. I mean, other wild animals in the area. You got to be careful when you're going out and investigating, and you don't know what's out there. You got to be really well. Hello there, Gatlinburg. Appreciate you being here. You got to be really careful. I appreciate you calling me young man. I'm older than you are. young man. Oh, I'm telling you, this Gatlinburg guy, you got to watch him. You got to watch that Gatlinburg guy. He does, there's my friend. Make sure everybody, you follow him. You guys follow him. You follow my friend Gatlinburg. There we go. Yeah, we want to follow him. I love Gatlinburg. And he goes live, and there you go. I pinned it for you. Make sure you follow him. He goes live a lot on Gatlinburg and even Pigeon Forge. Does great videos. Good guy. Good guy. Don't tell him I said that. Have Alabama? No, there's a lot. The thing is with what Ron had stated is Bigfoot seems to be everywhere. And that's the thing also, I think we got to keep in mind. When you have so many people in different cultures and different regions seeing this bipedal massive creature, I think you got to start saying, okay, something is going on here. Because if it was only in one section, one group of people, you can kind of take it with a grain of salt. But the fact that it's being seen throughout all the entire world, and not only that, but also cultures. Oh, very welcome there, Gatlinburg. Appreciate you being here. Yeah, well, there's a lot of theories as far as what Bigfoot is. Here's the deal. You give up for what? Keep in mind that I have a lot of chats open at this time, a lot of chats. We are running the show on KGREDB Radio, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, Rumble, and here I have chats everywhere. So yeah, I don't just run the show on TikTok. This is just one of the chats of the many different chat boxes that I have open. So there we go. Oh, Theo, I liked all the guys. The guys were great. So, okay. So I liked all the guys. But anyway, that's a presentation on Bigfoot. I think something is out there. We have a lot to talk about tonight. I have some really cool articles that I want to get to. And yeah, just remember, no one is ignoring you. It's just I'm only one person, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 chats open, plus Messenger. So a lot of chats. Okay. Yeah, I don't have white hair. Listen to this. TK Randall writes this, and one day I might be going to this place. You never know. Absolutely, Doc Campbell. Welcome. A site of an alleged alien base in Alaska has become a UFO hotspot. So Mount Hayes has become synonymous with reports of UFOs, alien visitors, and mysterious disappearances. Situated within the notorious region of unexplained phenomena known as the Alaskan Triangle. The 8,000-foot peak has long been rumored to be home to a secretive extraterrestrial facility ever since declassified CIA files claimed that remote viewing experiments had uncovered a base there. Whether or not you believe this to be true, there's no denying that Mount Hayes has become something of a UFO hotspot in recent years, with enthusiasts traveling to the region and locals reporting all manner of strange sights in the sky over the mountain. Now, one witness, a former security officer, Jared Augustin, reported being left shaking in awe after seeing a glowing orb that split into 3 separate objects. And after witness, a local named Wilbur reportedly captured footage of a glowing green light over the mountain. Perhaps most chilling of all, however, are the 2,000 or so people who have vanished without a trace in the region surrounding Mount Hayes over the last 50 years. In 1972, for example, the U.S. Majority Leader Hale Boggs was flying from Anchorage to Juneau when his plane disappeared somewhere near the mountain. Despite an extensive 39-day search, the plane was never found. Today, the region remains a popular attraction, and witnesses still reporting strange lights in the sky and other phenomena they cannot explain. Now, whether or not alien bases is responsible, however, remains a matter of debate. But no question, there are people that are going missing. Now look, it's in Alaska. Alaska has massive amounts of woods and trees and, dangerous landscaping. And so, look, you got to be careful. So, yeah, a lot of people go to this place. And A lot of people think, I don't agree with it. But that's okay. Okay. So I'm trying to read the chat. I'm doing the best I can. I can only read so much. Let's relax, guys. I'm doing the best I can. Okay. Yeah, missing plane. Yeah, and keep in mind, he was. This person who actually went for 39 days. He was U.S. Majority Leader Hale Boggs in 1972. So hello. All right. What was your question, Starla? Because, what was your question? So anyway, demon song, yeah, nah. Okay. This is an interesting article that I wanted to present to you guys. See what you thought about this. Some of these articles are like, what? They did what? Oh, you remember the incident? 39-day. They obviously, he was a U.S. majority. He was, high-ranking political figure, and so it got attention. Hello. Well, listen to this. This is by T.K. Randall. A man passes away after claiming that a ghost was trying to unalive him. I know. Some of you are like, what in the world? Okay. Well, it's true. Anyway, a Russian tourist reportedly fell to his death from the 9th floor of a condo in Thailand earlier this month. So the 27-year-old named Mikhail had been staying at a condominium in the Thailand, in the province at the time of the incident. And according to reports, he had approached a security guard on May the 22nd and told them that he was being hunted by a terrible ghost with bulging eyes. Well, after running all over the building, he ultimately passed away after falling from a 9th floor window. He was completely out of it, the guard later said, and he kept saying that a ghost with bulging eyes was chasing him and trying to unalive him. He was terrified, running up and down the building like a madman. And that another resident of the building claimed to have heard his screams just prior to the fall. He was yelling in this awful voice, it says. And it was like something out of a horror film, but until today, he seemed totally normal. As it turned out, however, there was a very genuine explanation for the man's state of mind. When police entered his room to investigate, they discovered that he had almost certainly been taking illegal substance at the time that he'd fallen from the building. Quote, "We found no evidence of an altercation or break-in," said Deputy Inspector Police Lieutenant. "It appears the victim was hallucinating." That is a terrible story. And that's why we always, when it comes to ghosts or demons or anything like this, if anyone ever says, "Look, I need an exorcism," I always tell them I don't perform them on command. That's number one. And number two, if you need an exorcism, we require, it's not an option. We require that the person has a psychological evaluation. It's non-negotiable. And what bothers me is that I see a lot of people claiming to be exorcists and things of this nature and performing rituals on individuals that they have no business performing rituals on. Thank you. And one of the things, of course, is performing exorcism on people who are mentally ill. And that happens a lot. And I find it to be a problem. And so this is something that, people say, well, I need one. Well, then I don't perform them on command. Doesn't happen. And it's not ever going to happen. So anyway, people say that they've levitated and all that other stuff. Look, here's the deal. If I had $1 every time someone told me they levitated or television was thrown across the room, I'd be a millionaire. So I've been doing this for 25 years. And I have over 21,000 emails. People saying that they, have this. Until I see it, if I don't see it, I'm a skeptic. Yes, exorcisms are recorded. They're recorded for not only for church records, for documentation, but also Well, primarily for documentation, because it's very dangerous. When someone has an exorcism, or you got to understand that they've gone through extreme trauma. And from a physical aspect, the demonic has attacked the individual, the intellect and the will. And it's dangerous. And it's a process where it is a constant barrage of attack. And so that person is vulnerable, obviously, to a heart attack, stroke, and because the demonic will attack. It's a nonstop barrage of attack. So the person can't fight anymore. Well, hello there, U.S. Army. So anyway, this is why we you have to cross the T's and dot the I's, because you're dealing with a human being. Thank you, Roxanne. So anyway, that's the problem, and people just do this. Now, let's address this for the 500th millionth gazillionth time. TK Randall writes, panic as real-life haunted Annabelle doll reportedly goes missing. Okay, first of all, next week, I'm interviewing my friend, Father Bob. He is a retired Roman Catholic priest. He was on Paranormal State. He obviously knew Lorraine as well as I. I knew Lorraine too. He is traveling with Annabelle. And so we're going to ask him all the questions about, his experience with Paranormal State. And of course, with the Annabelle tour that he's on. So if you guys want to tune in, it's next week at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be interviewing Father Bob, who is accompanying Annabelle on this tour. Let's get to this ridiculous, idiotic rumor. The infamous doll that has been kept for years at the museum, once run by the Paranormal Investigations Ed and Lorraine Warren. So anyone who has seen the various Conjuring movies franchise will likely be familiar with Annabelle. It's a notorious doll that the Warrens acquired back in the 1970s. It actually is a Raggedy Ann doll. They couldn't have a Raggedy Ann doll on the movie because of trademark issues. So the story goes, it was originally gifted to a student nurse who was later told by a medium it was possessed by the spirit of a deceased girl named Annabelle. Before long, it was rumored that the doll exhibited malicious behavior, ultimately leading to the Warrens taking possession of it and keeping it on display in their museum. But Annabelle's story didn't end there. Most recently, it was widely reported in the press that the doll, which had been traveling around as part of the Devils on the Run tour hosted by the New England Society for Psychic Research, has seemingly gone missing from its display after reaching New Orleans. The rumor was sparked by stories from tour visitors who claimed that they hadn't seen the doll. Anyway, this news prompted considerable concern among fans who speculated that Annabelle was now on the loose. She's running down the street and capable of inflicting all manner of paranormal harm upon unsuspecting victims. But no, it was all what was seen. NESPR lead investigator Dana Rivera quickly moved to debunk the claims that the doll was missing by demonstrating that it was, in fact, still in its case at Ed and Lorraine Warren's museum. It seemed that rather going missing, the doll simply hadn't been included on that particular part of the tour. So, for the millionth time, people keep asking me, I don't know. Look, I don't have anything to do with the doll. But it was a ridiculous story. It was a rumor. Annabelle the doll never went missing, ever. So just relax. I mean, anyway, now you can ask a question. I'll try to answer questions, but I got a lot of chats open right now, so I'll do the best I can. Plus, people are asking me questions on Messenger, so I'm doing the best I can. So just relax. Just not you, ATTs, but other people are getting a little. Just guys, I'm doing the best I can. Okay, what's your question? And when you do an exorcism, what happens if it gets sent back to hell? Well, ultimately, usually it leaves. It leaves prior to that, and so Now, where it goes, there's a lot of debate as far as, the intellect and will of the exorcist and the intellect and will of the demonic are at battle during an exorcism. And most of the time when the demonic knows that it has been defeated, it will leave. So what's the wickedness? I have no idea, Gabriel. I don't understand the question. So you have to explain that one. What's the wickedness one you did? I don't understand one. You have to explain, what do you mean? No, I've never seen Annabelle. No, I've never seen Annabelle. However, I did know Lorraine, and she did not like Annabelle at all. And by the way, for everybody who says that Lorraine never always said you should never move her, guys, Ed and Lorraine took Annabelle quite often to when they did presentations. They took her with them all the time. And they talked about her. They talked about the story. When they did presentations on demonology and things. So it wasn't as if they never took. They certainly did take her. So she's just talking about that it shouldn't be like taken and not controlled and monitored. So you came across. So what's the wickedness demonic thing you came across? Well, probably an exorcism. I mean, the exorcism was about the first exorcism that I did. Now, by the way, I'm a cast member on the show called Eli Roth Presents Legion of Exorcists. You can watch on HBO Max, Travel Channel, and I guess Netflix and all those other places. But this family did bring in a doll to their home. The wife became obsessed with it, and I don't have it. I don't have it here. I don't like to bring it here, only because it always causes problems every time I do. But so maybe one day I'll do a presentation, maybe next week after Father Bob talks. Maybe I'll bring in several of the items, and I'll bring in the doll that's on the show. So that is the doll that when I showed up, the entire house, it was like a McMansion house, a 3-story house was completely burnt down. And the only thing standing was an ornate bookshelf, metal bookshelf, and they had this doll. And when I pulled up, I thought, why is there a doll on the bookshelf? That was very odd. And actually, the chief, the fire chief, and the family are the one that contacted me. And I'm like, I don't know anything about fires. Why are you contacting me? I mean, but when I showed up there and I saw this doll, the doll has burnt marks on the fabric, on the clothing. It's a porcelain doll, and the chief could not understand why the doll didn't burn. Because the entire house burnt to a crisp. The stairwells weren't even, nothing was, it burnt, it was all burnt. So yeah, the heat factor had to been extreme, the fire chief said. So I have it in a container, and I do bring it sometimes to paranormal conferences when I go there. When I went to a Louisville Mid-South Paranormal Conference, and I was doing a presentation, and people kept begging me to take it out of the case. And normally I don't, but I did. Guys, I'm not answering questions right now because I'm thinking of the story. So I can't, I'm not looking at the chat. So I brought it out of its case, and the entire room changed. Everything, the environment completely changed in the room. And everybody said, put it back. So as I was putting it back in its case, someone asked me a question. I got distracted. I put it next to my brand new laptop. As I turned around, a firefighter in the front row was screaming, Bishop Long, your laptop is on fire. I turned around, my laptop had caught fire, and a room full of people at the Louisville Mid-South Paranormal Conference saw this. Thank you there. Appreciate that. So a whole room of people saw this. And so that was aired on the Legion of Exorcists show. Maybe next week I'll bring it. We'll see. I don't like bringing it in here. It's not something that I prefer. I'm not taking it out of its case. I don't want to, it makes me uncomfortable to do that. Well, thank you there, 9-3. Appreciate that. So, I mean, because I'd always heard about haunted items. I've always heard about them, and I've collected them for 25 years now. I've collected them for people who buy these things, and then they, no, this was a brand new. No, this was a brand new laptop. No, I the battery was completely intact. Because that's what I thought. I was like, well, maybe some type of internal, nothing. So the battery was completely perfect. I mean, right in the middle, you saw the flame. It was the whole entire room of people saw that. But I collect these items because people bring them, and then they want to know why they have violent activity in their home. These things are not to be messed with. Stay away from them. Do not collect them. So maybe next week I'll talk about some items. I'll bring a few items, and then I'll bring that doll. Oh yeah, I blessed them, and we'll see. Okay, Starla, I've been looking. Okay, has a question about. Okay, what's the question? I mean, I guys, help me out with this question because I can't stop the whole entire show. I mean, I'm trying, but we're live. Okay, there, Jordan. Okay, pin the question because I got to move on. Okay, let's see. Yeah, some of these items are pretty crazy. Oh, you think TikTok is? Oh, well, Starla, that's your issue right there. TikTok, that's the issue. TikTok, Starla. TikTok has a tendency of when you ask a question, if it doesn't like the question, it will mute it. Because I have not seen your question come through once, and unfortunately, TikTok is doing that a lot. Yep, Starla, that's what's going on. Because none of the moderators have seen your comment. Yeah, reword it because TikTok is really strict about certain things. I don't know why. I don't know. So if you guys see the question, just spin it. Okay. Yeah, filtered by TikTok. This is a very, very interesting. The most haunted item. Oh, that's a tough one. Because I have original John Wayne Gacy paintings. I have a pair of Dahmer's glasses, Jeffrey Dahmer's glasses. Gosh, the doll was pretty rough. And I would say there's this one item that I have that caused people to get sick. I mean, almost like they were about to pass out. When I went to West Virginia, the paranormal conference, Jack's just mentioning, it is the human hair thing that causes a lot of people to get sick. So you'll see it. I'll bring that next week. And that was a crazy. Why would I possess those items? Okay, well, number one, I'm clergy. I'm an exorcist, and I go around to well, thank you there for subscribing. And I go to paranormal conferences, and I teach about the dangers of paranormal investigating. I teach about demonology, and I also teach about the dangers of collecting these items. These items now are really being collected at a rampant rate. Now, what I do is, number one, I have a master of education, and I used to teach kids and adults who learn differently. Not everyone learns through a lecture style. They learn when they visually sees it. So one, as an exorcist, I remove these items from people's houses. They collect them, and then violent activity occurs, and then I teach people what they need to do. Sometimes I have to go to their home and perform the minor rite of exorcism. So I collect these items. I have a storage facility. What I do is sometimes I go to paranormal conference and I will bring them, and then people can see it. Because let me tell you something, if I start talking about this doll in an abstract way like I'm doing now, that is dramatically different when you are in the presence of this doll. It is a different world. Now, there was an investigator, a seasoned investigator, asked me when I was at the West Virginia Paranormal Conference, and he said, "Do you mind if I my FLIR camera and see the measurements?" I said, "Absolutely not. Do whatever you." Absolutely. He captured a dramatic heat increase. So what he did is he put the FLIR on the case, and he got a reading. And then I opened the door so he could get a reading on the doll, so the glass wouldn't interfere. I opened the door, and it was almost off the charts. The heat signature that came from this doll was unbelievable. And he sent this to me. So when you have things like this and evidence like that, and then people are in the room, like, for example, when I took the doll out of its case, I'm telling you, the entire room in that Louisville Mid-South Paranormal Conference, the whole room changed. It was heavy. That's the only way I can describe it. It just changed. And everybody in that room said, put it back. Put it back. And as I was putting it back, that's when I got distracted and put it right next to a brand new computer that I've been saving up for months and months and months. Caught fire. And so when you see it, I'm just, please stop messing with these items. They're very dangerous. You don't know the history of these items. And what they're doing is you're bringing these items into your home. And so I am going to bring the Gacy's paintings that I have. I have several Gacy paintings, actually. I think maybe 4 that are real Gacy paintings. I have a pair of Dahmer's glasses. How I got that is a 17-year-old kid became infatuated with Jeffrey Dahmer. And he was riding Dahmer back and forth. And Dahmer became a little bit infatuated with this 17-year-old kid. And this kid asked something of Dahmer's, and Dahmer had an old pair of glasses, and he gave it to him. He sent him this kid. The kid's family found out, kid's mom found out, and she hit the roof. She was not going to put up with that. So she contacted me and said, look, we're not putting up with this. Do you want this? And said, absolutely. Yeah. So she sent it to me. They didn't have any activity in their home, but she did not want a pair of Jeffrey Dahmer's glasses with her son. So that's how it happened. And that's how I have Dahmer's, the pair of Dahmer's glasses. It doesn't have the lenses. It just has, was Dahmer possessed? There's one situation. See, Dahmer knew what he was doing, but here's what he did. Dahmer would go into a ritual where he would turn on The Exorcist 3. And he would become this ritual before he did terrible things. And he said it put him like in a trance. And then he said he remembered what he was doing, but there was one time where he does not remember. He took a gentleman to a hotel room, and he had no intention on harming or anything. But the next morning he woke up, and obviously this person had been tortured, and Jeffrey Dahmer has no memory of it. In the stage of possession, when you're possessed, you have no memory of it. You have everything. You have a memory of what led up to it. Now, do I think he was demonically oppressed? No question. I think he had a demonic attachment in just as much as that Bundy. As a matter of fact, I'm putting a documentary together now. I went to an Alcatraz museum in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. They have Ted Bundy's actual car, his Beetle, and they also had John Wayne Gacy's 2 of his outfits, his clown outfits, and his black jacket that he was arrested in. They had that, and so they had several things. They had the Bronco chase, and they had all kinds. So I'm putting that together, and a little documentary on that. So that should be looking forward to that. And don't forget, this coming October, which we're still plenty of time. Okay, you sent Jax the question. Okay, what's the question? This October, I am going to the Queen Mary. The Queen Mary is one of the most truly haunted, a very haunted ship. Has a lot of activity, and I'm going to be staying in the most haunted room while I'm there. I'll be there for 3 days. I am going to be doing documentaries. I will be going live at the Queen Mary. Okay, Mr. Brett. And I'll be doing that. So that will be happening. And believe me, I'll let you know when all that's going to happen. You'll have plenty of time. I'll let you know. And so that's going to be a lot of fun. So why? For your entertainment. That's why. And so that's what we're going to be doing. And That's why we're doing it. And so we can put documentaries together. Plus, I'll be going to other haunted locations and going from there. So TikTok, hang tight. For those of you who are listening to this on podcasts, I'm going to say good night to you guys. Yeah, it goes by too fast. It goes by way, way, way too fast. And hopefully you'll join us tonight when we have night prayer, but I'll be staying here a little longer for TikTok afterwards. So for those of you on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, Rumble, and KGRADB Radio, remember, I tell you all the time, your value does not decrease based on a troll's inability or refusal to see your worth. You're priceless, and don't let any troll tell you or convince you otherwise. Good night.